matter what hour your clock strikes, here it's always Halloween. And I'm always your haunted host, Luce Tomlin Brenner. Welcome to Small Frights Friday, where I like to share a curated selection of calls from the All Hallows Hotline and letters from the EEEEK mailbag. Well, I have got some interesting news, lanterns. There are no calls on the All Hallows Hotline this week. This is the first time since I started the podcast last September that there hasn't been a new call. There is one call waiting that I have been sitting on for a little bit that I have a plan for. It didn't fit in this episode. But other than that, no new calls. Oh, egads. I am stunned. So this is your homework. You have to call in and share a ghost story or a memory of Halloween or a costume that was just so outrageous that when you walked in, everybody at the party went, ah! And I would also welcome recipes, maybe a cute Halloween outfit. ModCloth just emailed me this week. Now, I'm sure they might have emailed other people. I don't think it was to me directly, but I would love that kind of personalized attention. Saying that they have a halfway to Halloween clothes out now. I am very curious if you guys have noticed a huge ramp up in Halloween appreciation since the pandemic started. I am thinking that our love of Halloween comfort extends farther than maybe we even realized, that many people have actually been running into the arms of Halloween over this last year, because I don't remember people celebrating halfway to Halloween even last year. Last year, I would say, around the end of April, we were all in the throes of total and utter desperation. So it might have been difficult to really get that going. But it really feels like every month is a push or a twist on something Halloween related, which I love, but I just don't notice. I hadn't noticed this type of enthusiasm before. It always felt like it was just me and a couple of my weird friends. And maybe it's just because I'm more plugged into the Halloween community than ever before. I would love to hear if you guys have noticed an uptick in Halloween appreciation. A lot of people have written and called in about their concern for trick-or-treating, of which I too am worried about. But I am thinking about how utterly dedicated to this holiday so many people are. And also, the capitalistic side of it, how much money it's raking in. It creeps closer and closer to the amount Americans spend on Christmas every year, which is outrageous and so interesting to think of those two being close in that way. And, if there's money to be made, corporations are going to keep pushing a holiday, which of course can strip it of the lovely community aspects, which is what we truly cherish. But it does mean more visibility, which can mean more pushing to trick-or-treating. So I think I'm very curious. I'm very, very curious about what this year's trick-or-treating will be like. If having to hold back last year is going to cause this wild burst of energy that maybe we'll finally start seeing people in their 20s trick-or-treating, which again, I am all for. You dress up, go all out as much as your budget and creativity allows you, and just try to go get some candy, see what happens. And I love one of our callers last week talked about how he likes to carry king-size candy around and give it to people fresh. It's not this is a candy bar I've had from 5 Halloweens ago. He's buying fresh candy to give out to people. So he's essentially trick-or-treating them, going out and being hello, here, this is for your bucket, even though you did not ask me, and putting a big smile on people's face. So I also just, I cherish that idea as something that, I love it as an all year round thing to do, but I think it's so fun to do that around Halloween. I think I've told this story before, but I actually did try to do that last year. My boyfriend and I walked around the neighborhood where I work. It's really cute. It's South Pasadena, which is where they shot Halloween, the 1978 Halloween. So Michael Myers and Laurie Strode's house is there, right near the video store where I work. So I always call it Haddonfield. So we walked around Haddonfield, taking pictures and enjoying everybody's decorations. And so I had this bag of candy and I kept offering it to children, and it made me feel like such a freak because I went into the situation like, man, these kids are going to be so stoked. They're going to be so grateful, and their eyes are going to go so wide, and I am going to be the queen of Halloween. I'm just going to make their Halloween perfect. I will have saved their lives with my teeny tiny Reese's cups. And everybody was like, you're creepy. Like, no one actually said that, but the way that they looked at me, a young woman who was very cool and approachable, they looked at me like I was very dangerous, and it made me feel so awkward and weird and like maybe I was doing the wrong thing. Is this LA? It might be LA. People are very strange out here. I love it, but there's like a stranger danger to the max. People do not interact, and my Midwestern roots are offended. So I'm hoping that this conversation inspires you to fill up the All Hallows Hotline voicemail box again, because like I said, it's been overflowing since September, and I can't believe I finally scraped at the bottom. I am shocked and appalled. No, I'm not appalled. I am grateful for everything that you lanterns have done to contribute to this incredible podcast. How are you guys feeling out there in Halloween land? I am feeling tired. I have felt a little crazed by this latest chapter on witches. I keep thinking I'm at the end, and then I find out something new, and then I go back and I change a bunch of stuff. And I appreciate how patient y'all are being out there. I have to admit, I'm having a hard time with this one. I feel a little in over my head. But that happens sometimes with research. Have you guys, in school, would you ever think you're like, this paper on Twain, this will be easy. I'm going to read a couple of essays about Mark Twain, or I'll read a couple of his essays. I'm just going to throw together a 5-paragraph essay. I'll do this in one night. And then you like crack open the first book and it's like, dun, dun, dun. You're like, oh no, I vastly underestimated Mark Twain. It's sort of how I'm feeling. Somehow, despite my passion for witches, despite all my books that I've been reading for so long, I'm like, I am in over my head. Why didn't I just pick something easy like candy? The history of candy. So that's a little peek behind the curtain. I want to thank everybody for your patience. I have gotten many messages from people, very sweet messages from people saying how much they love the history episodes and they miss them. And you know what? Me too. I am very eager to get that back out again. And I appreciate you guys hanging with me during a little bit of a downtime. You know, it is halfway to Halloween, and I think I'm feeling a little bit of that Halloween slump where I'm like, is it ever going to be Halloween again? It's so funny because we talk about the Halloween hangover directly after October ends. And I think because my birthday's in November, I easily switch over to be like, birthday vibes. But I think I'm feeling the Halloween hangover now in May. Is anybody with me? Somebody please come tell me I'm not alone. All right, that's been so much vamping, but I just wanted to connect with you guys on a little bit of a personal level there and maybe give you some inspiration for future calls and EEEEKmails. But never fret, the hotline may not have any calls, but we do have 3 EEEEKmails to read. So let's jump into the EEEEKmails. And before we start that, I want to welcome 3 new members to the Patreon Ghoul Gang. Welcome, Tom the Fanboy, Crystal Cox, and Grace Tuttle. It's so amazing to have you guys in the Ghoul Gang. I am so delighted that now we are up to almost 30 patrons. My goodness, you guys are helping us fund 40% of the podcast. This is so cool. Almost more than 40%. Here's the thing. Every time when I do this, I make some time to do the math, and today I didn't make the time to do the math. So listen, it's close to 50%. I was a women's studies major, so I did not focus on figuring out percentages off the top of my head. The point is, we are almost funding half of the podcast, which is amazing, and I'm not putting out the history episodes right now, so you're basically funding the whole podcast. It's incredible, and it makes such a huge difference with my work-life balance and my ability to keep spending time on this. So thank you for joining. It's great to have everybody coming onto the brand new Discord channel I have for patrons who pledge $3 and up. And there's a little bit of growing pains with that still, because there's a bunch of things you have to do to connect your Patreon account to the Discord channel. So if you're still having problems with that, I will be reaching out to everybody individually. Thank you for your patience. And again, all of us were in the very beginnings of this very fun thing together. And I'm just so grateful for everybody pitching in. It's fun to be at the start of something, to build something together, And then there's just that little tiny piece of it that's bumpy because we're figuring it out. But we're figuring it out together, which is such a treat. We're not alone. How nice is that? So it's great to have everybody in the Ghoul Gang. We are building this whole Patreon community together, just like we're building out Halloween Land as lanterns together. And I am psyching myself back up. I just said I had a Halloween hangover, but now I'm thinking about how funny and clever and interesting all of you are. And I'm feeling excited again. Wow, what a treat. Well, without further ado, let's share some more memories together, shall we? Our first EEEKmail today has the subject line, "My 2020 Zoom Hallowine party." Ooh, I love a portmanteau. That's wonderful. Dearest Luce, boo! I'm scared. I found your podcast last week. Oh my God, welcome. And I absolutely love it. I love this EEEKmail. Thank you. Thank you so much for creating this much needed space for us like-minded souls. My pleasure. I live in Sonoma County, aka wine country. Since I'm an old crone and I was devastated by the cancellation of trick-or-treating last year, I was forced to get creative, and I came up with this adult version of Halloween that combined a hometown activity my friends and I are well acquainted with and my favorite holiday, wine pairing with candy. We all got into costume and via Zoom had a list of wines that I envisioned going well with some classic candies. For example, peanut butter cups with a full-bodied Cabernet Sauvignon, Snickers and a spicy Pinot Noir, Skittles and a crisp, fruity Fume Blanc, and the finale was a sparkling wine with a dark chocolate square. Perfection! The list could go on, and you can customize based on the type of varietals that you love. All in all, it was a great fun, and I will try to keep this new tradition alive even when we get back to, quote, normal Halloween. My favorite Halloween memory is about the time my cemetery scavenger hunt party was interrupted by a police helicopter spotlight. Oh no! We all thought it was after us for having flashlights beaming in the cemetery after dark, and maybe a neighbor thinking it was vandals. Oh my goodness, what if you all had gotten arrested for grave robbing? And you're like, it's not that kind of scavenger hunt. I'm just looking for a pebble with a note tied around it. back to the story. We all quickly turned out our flashlights and hid behind trees and tombstones, hoping not to be found. Some of us ran down the hill back to my house, which butted up against the cemetery. Yeah, lucky me. We were all professional 40-somethings in costumes, and all I could imagine was my mugshot in full witch regalia. Eek! Anywho, it turned out there was a runner from a traffic stop not far from my house, and he ran into the cemetery to hide. After we all made it stealthily back to my house, we saw him barreling down the hill being chased by the cops. Yes, they caught him. I never found out what the crime was, but I like to make up all sorts of scary stories about what was in his trunk. Thanks again for this awesome podcast, and I am happy to support it for ongoing success. Best, Crystal. Yes, thank you so much, Crystal. This was one of the crystals I thanked at the beginning of the podcast. Wait, I only thanked one. This was the crystal that I thanked at the beginning of the podcast. Brand new Patreon subscriber. Crystal, thank you for supporting the podcast, and thank you for sending in a heck of an EEEKmail. My goodness, not only was that a very fun party recommendation and an absolutely outrageously entertaining story involving a police chase through a cemetery. Wow, what a night. I wonder if someone did get arrested in their costume, if they'd make them take most of it off so that the mugshot could be clear. But what if you had your face all painted up? Like, what if you had your face painted like a clown and then that was your mugshot? They probably would make you wash your face, since mugshots are supposedly for the purpose of keeping track or recognizing people. I don't understand why police do anything that they do. Now I can't stop giggling to myself, thinking of like a series of mugshots of bummed people in tattered Halloween costumes. What a story. Thank you so much, Crystal. And I feel like I butchered all of those wine names, and I told on myself, basically being like, I don't drink wine. I am not cultured. I'm putting on a fake French accent. Merci, Crystal. Let us move along now to our next EEEEKmail, and this subject line is Salem. In your most recent episode, you mentioned that you might be in Salem this October. I thought that this would be a great time and place for an East Coast meetup. There are a lot of Halloween events in the area in October, and of course on Halloween itself, with some planning around other events, I'm sure we could all attend a lantern meetup. And that wonderful suggestion is from Becky. Thank you so much, Becky. I would absolutely love to go to Salem this October. There are things like finances and scheduling that are hanging in the balances. So it is not a sure thing. I haven't booked anything yet. I haven't traveled. I've barely left my house. So I have lots of feelings. I have lots of ideas. But as time marches closer to the fall, I'll have a better idea of how realistic that is for me the year of recovering from the pandemic. And also, September is going to be a year of It's Always Halloween, and I have got so many things planned that I don't want to do too much. Do you know what I mean? I have so many great ideas, and I think we're all going to really struggle with this, and so I'd like us to try to pace ourselves together and not overcommit ourselves to too many things. That being said, I've already bought 10 tickets to Salem. Very unnecessary. Why would I buy that many? Who's going to use all of them? I would absolutely adore a West Coast meetup for sure, since I live on the West Coast. And then if there's anything that I can do to help facilitate meetups in other places that I can't necessarily be at, I am down to do that. So anything that you're like, oh, let's do a lantern thing in Salem at this time, I'll promote it, I'll shout it out, I'll put it on the Instagram so that everybody can meet up, and then take pictures and send it to me and tell me all about it, and let's talk about it on Small Frights. This is just me trying to be a little bit of like this is my little bit of mom coming out where I'm like, well, let's be realistic. Why? Being realistic isn't fun, Mom. So, hey, who knows? Why don't we fantasize about there being lots of money and time and we're all able to go to Salem together this October? Let's do a quick breath. Manifest that together. We all have the money, space, and time we need to celebrate Halloween exactly as we want it to. What a wonderful little prayer. Okay, guys, I have one more EEEEKmail, and this one is from Steve. And the subject line is Devil's Night. I grew up in Oak Park, Michigan, which is a border city of Detroit, during the 1980s. I lived right on 10 Mile, so fairly close to the lure of 8 Mile. It wasn't the safest community, and I was always terrified of our home being vandalized or even burned down during festivities. We would put everything on our porch away that night. The jack-o'-lanterns had to go inside or in the garage. Nothing major ever happened besides an early pumpkin or two being smashed, but I was always really scared. When I became a young teenager, I never got fully into that night, but my cousin and I did pull a stupid prank in a different city. I am a bit ashamed now, but we emptied his cat's used litter box into a bag and dumped it all over some stranger's front porch. Shame on us, I know, but at least we didn't go destroying things. I also want to share some Halloween recipe traditions. Before trick-or-treating, my mother always did that full pot of chili like some of the other lanterns. Wow. Our other Halloween tradition from when I was a kid was that my mom always made these oatmeal molasses cookies, which we would decorate with orange frosting and make jack-o'-lantern faces on the front. I still make these yearly. They are my all-time favorites. I have attached a photo. Oh my goodness, I love this. These are cool, Steve. Okay, so now I will post a photo, but now you have to share the recipe. Okay. Oh my gosh, you guys, I am bowled over with so many ideas because we've been sharing a few recipes here and there, but oh my gosh, it's always Halloween cookbook with recipes collected from all the lanterns. How freaking cool would that be? Oh my gosh. Okay, put it in the notes. Who am I talking to? I'm alone in my closet. I will say, however, after last week's episode where I was like, do people want to do a book club? Should we do an It's Always Halloween book club? I had heard from a lot of lanterns who love that idea, and Jenny, a regular caller, beloved member of the Patreon Ghoul Gang, reached out to volunteer to help me organize it. So Jenny and I are in the very beginning planning stages of getting a book club together. Do I have a date for this yet? No, but we are starting. And here's the thing with projects, is the idea phase is really fun. And the doing it phase is really fun. The planning is harder, and it always takes a little longer than you want it to. Take it from me, this is my full-time life. And so I'm putting it out there because I think you should always put your ideas out there. Anything you guys want to do, tell another person about it. Tell me about it. And I want everybody to know we're going to do this book club. Jenny and I are on it, and it'll come maybe this summer, but definitely, hear my words, it'll definitely start by the start of the Halloween season, which is end of July, beginning of August, in my opinion. All right, well, that was today's episode. 3 incredible EEEEKmails. Thank you so much for contributing, Crystal, Becky, and Steve. I loved those stories. And before we go, I just want to share one more bit of personal news. As I said, I am filming a short horror comedy this summer, and for those listeners that are into a little bit of zany, hyperbolic, fictional murder, I think you might be into this new short. It's called Surprise! And it's about a group of gal pals in their 30s who try to throw a surprise for a friend, but everything careens out of control and one of them winds up dead. Oh, what a bummer. If you like Jawbreaker, Drop Dead Gorgeous, Heathers, it's in the vein of those movies, but with adult women who have yet to break that painful toxic positivity and cattiness of youth. So if that's your thing, check it out on my personal Instagram page, LTB Comedy, or you can check out my film collective, which is Too Much Productions. Otherwise, just follow the podcast at It's Always Halloween Podcast. We are on Instagram. May I start a Twitter someday? I'm not sure. It's a lot to manage. But you can follow me personally on Twitter at LTB Comedy, same on Instagram and Twitter. And I do tweet Halloween things and horror things. And I do all the podcast stuff from the personal Twitter. But you guys, what an amazing episode this was. As always, it was performed by me, Luce Tomlin-Brenner, with contributions from your incredible Luceo Lanterns. And it was edited, and the theme music was by the absolutely world-famous, talented maestro, Pete Burns. Give it up for Pete Burns, everybody, and give him a follow at Mittenberries. And check him out on Spotify, where you can hear all of his original music, which is incredible. I love it. Highly recommend. If you want to be like Grace, Crystal, and Tom and join the Ghoul Gang on Patreon, all you have to do is go to patreon.com/itsAlwaysHalloween, or you could just click the link in our show notes. You can also find Instagram that way, or you can make a one-time donation as well. Everything goes straight back into this podcast, and you, dear listener, go straight into my heart. As always, you can find us on all of the podcast apps. And if you have Apple, hey, would you take a minute to rate, review, and subscribe? If you write us a little review, I will screech, first of all, but I'll also read it on the air, and it helps our algorithm so much. I can't tell you guys what a big difference it has made. We're like the #1 Halloween podcast when you search Halloween, which is very cool and very helpful. And that's the kind of energy we're going to need going into August. So we crush our competition. Just kidding. You guys, there's no competition in Halloween land. There's actually enough room for all of us. And all I want to do is lift up everyone around me. But it would be nice to come up first in the search, right? Okay. So you can also find us on the NPR One app, where you should subscribe so that Ira Glass knows how awesome we are. Last but not least, if you have a Halloween memory, recipe, tradition that you want to share with us, you can call in to that All Hallows Hotline at 802-532-DEAD. Or you can write an EEEEKmail to itsalwayshalloweenpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you so very much for listening to another episode of It's Always Halloween, and come back next time, unless you're too loopy on fancy wine and cheap chocolate.